How's it going, everybody that's tuning in? I'm Jackson Fuller, high school sports reporter with the Star News. Blessed to be joined today by Tanner Barth, the sports reporter over at WWAY. And Tanner, we've been waiting for this it feels like forever. It's been over a year. High school football season officially starts tomorrow. I'm excited. What are kind of your emotions for the season coming right around the corner, a spring season this year?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Jackson, because, generally we're used to, we get the upcoming to high school football season, we have the Jamboree, but then it's also 90 degrees outside, and it's really warm, and we've been kind of in the 40s the last couple of weeks. So it's a different feel, but, excited nonetheless to have the opportunity to get back out there and see these kids compete. And, we're going to have some fans in the stands as well. So it'll bring back kind of that excitement that we've all been, missing here over the last couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody that missed it, Governor Cooper expanded the capacity. I think it's 30%. The local counties haven't announced anything. I don't think as of today at 12:03, but if you watch this at 5, 6 o'clock tonight on Thursday, you'll probably get some new news. So be sure to check in with us at Star News Online, Tanner at WWAY for the latest with that. Before we start getting to the football, I'd like to shout out at least in my coverage area, 3 local basketball teams still standing, the Ashley girls, New Hanover boys, and Laney boys. They've all got home games tonight in the second round, and hopefully I think they all have a chance of having home games Saturday night, Tanner. I think it's been basketball, I think coming into the year we thought might be a little down, but hey, this is the second round. The playoffs are smaller, so it could be even seen as a third round. We've got 3 teams left.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of mentioned it right there. We didn't know really what to expect when it came to high school basketball this year, but our teams have showed up. The way the bracket's set up, it's set up favorably for some local teams to make some deep runs. And hopefully, like you said, as of right now, depending on when people watch this, hopefully we'll have some teams left to go, and we get to the third round on Saturday and, one step closer to maybe a state championship for the Cape Fear. It's not easy, but, teams deserve to get one this year, no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just as if all sports can crown a state champion, that'll be a success given what we've kind of gone through this year. So last year I did this video with Owen Hassel. I'd like to pour one out for him. He's now our local news editor and not handling sports. I sent him the initial offer just to be loyal. He said he didn't think he would be ready to do it every week, given he's not really paying all that much attention to high school sports anymore. So really thank you, Tanner, for being my partner in crime this year. And we're going to do 3 little games every week so you guys can kind of know what to expect from us. The games are going to be Set the Lines, Biggest Question, and Bold Prediction. I think 2 of those are pretty self-explanatory, but let's jump into Set the Lines, which I'm going to explain how it works. Every week, Tanner and I are going to take a look at the MidEastern Conference games going on. We're going to pretend like we are the Las Vegas bookies that care deeply about Wilmington area and southeastern North Carolina football. And we're going to pretend and see if we were determining what the spread would be for each of these games, what we think Vegas would put it at. No North Brunswick and South Brunswick this week. Tanner, let's start with the biggest game, arguably, of the year. It usually ends up that way. It's going to open us up this week, week 1, Hoggard at New Hanover. New Hanover won 30-7 last year. The Wildcats lost a lot of talent. Hoggard lost some guys. Both teams will have a lot of new faces. I'll start us off since this was my idea. I'll go on the record. I think the spread, if Vegas was making it, and this is not a prediction, just what sounds right, New Hanover minus 2.5, meaning they're 2.5-point favorites over Hoggard. What do you think about that? What would your prediction for a spread be? And then we can kind of go back and forth on what we think about this game.
I think this might be one of the toughest ones, Jackson, just because, as you mentioned, there has been so many different moving pieces for both of these teams. Hanover still has some of their playmakers that are out due to basketball right now. So it's going to be interesting. The Wildcats lose a lot on the offensive side of the ball, but, Hoggard's a team that he was maybe younger last year, but, they graduate some pieces as well. I think you're really close to that 2.5. I'm going to go even closer. I'm going to go 1.5. I think this thing could come down. I mean, you have it as well, come down to a field goal. But nonetheless, I think either team really has a shot. There's nothing that really sticks out to me right now. And it's tough to tell this early on because you don't know if, a guy that was on JV last year is going to come up and, make a big impact. And I just think it's hard to tell. First game of the season, generally something we see at the end of the year. What will these teams look like? Are they comfortable in their offense and their defense? It's just going to be I guess, a coin flip. But, we'll see very, very quickly on Friday night which one of these teams is going to have the upper hand.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, this might be our most uneducated show of the year. We haven't seen anybody, no scrimmages, no jamboree, and there's a lot of new faces. I kind of give the edge to New Hanover just because of what we saw from them last year. I know they do have some pieces from that team back. And Hoggard wasn't that impressive last year. They lost some games that they normally don't lose, like to West and Topsail. But the Vikings, I could definitely see a scenario where Hoggard comes out. Typically, they're the best offensive and defensive line in the conference and dominates the line of scrimmage and does what they want with New Hanover running the football. There's also a scenario where New Hanover does what they do last year and kind of outruns Hoggard on the edges and runs it up. But I do think we haven't had a close game in this rivalry in so long. I think this spread is me also kind of just hoping that we get some fun and some late drama Friday night at Legion Stadium.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it a little bit. Hoggard is a team that's hard to bet against, any Coach Underwood squad just because he does such a good job of getting his guys prepared, especially for big games like Hanover. But on the other side, the Wildcats, Mackay Stanley's gone, Chase Nixon is gone, but they also replaced him with some talented kids and, Raz Chandler and Liam Appler, who, a lot of people have been talking about for some time coming up to the ranks. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it'll be important to see. The team that wins this game, I think, is going to be the team that makes the less amount of mistakes. It may not be the sharpest offensive team. It's going to be the ones that, early on can way to control the ball, control the time of, possession. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's a good game and sets us off on the right foot.
Yeah, turnovers in week one are always very critical. All right, let's move on. Topsail at Laney. Over the last 2 years, this has been two of the best games that our area has seen. And last year, Laney won 26-21, made a late defensive stand near the goal line. And then the year before that, Topsail won 22-20 on a game-winning kick by Jose Orellano as time expired. This one was tough for me as well, but I have some confidence in Laney this year. I think they've got I really like head coach Luke Little. Come in there with his experience at Whiteville and then Morganton Freedom. I'm going Laney -4.5. I think these two teams have just shown us over the past couple years that they're evenly matched. But given kind of a weird season, I think Laney's got a lot of guys coming back that played last year. That team wasn't that great, but they got some experience. And I'm going to I think Laney 4.5 is the right spread here.
And I think I agree with you in the fact that I think Laney's going to be a lot better than people, might imagine this year. I think Coach Little coming in, a guy that had some experience, has had a lot of success in his career as well. He brings his quarterback son with him that is a very talented quarterback as well. But I think early on in this one, I think it's going to come down to whichever team is the ability to figure out what they are offensively, because, there's so many different question marks, and Laney's going to be without a couple of, big playmakers depending on, I don't know exactly, Jackson, if they end up losing today in basketball, can these football players play on Friday night, or do they have to get that a couple of required practices in?
So, I think I'm not sure. I thought there was a 24-hour rule that might only be with lacrosse. I have to imagine that going right into football season one day probably isn't going to happen, but you never know. I know the NCHSA and New Hanover County is doing whatever they can to get guys, playing as many sports as they want, because we want the kids to, if they, want to play multi-sports that are overlapping for whatever reason this year, it's all encouraging them to do that. So I'm not sure, but you're right. Connor Poe, Kyvius Berry are two weapons for Laney that, Ty Little is going to throw the ball a lot to this year. Those guys might not be available tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think that's going to make me flip the line from you going 4.5 Laney. I'm going to go 2.5 Topsail. Lay on the other side of it. I think, Topsail's still trying to figure out some things, but they have a lot of playmakers back. And we're going to see if Gavin Ellis, Wake Forest commit, is he going to make the move to quarterback? That was something that they talked about last year after, having a graduation of some really talented players on that side of the ball. So we'll see what if Gavin Ellis makes the move to quarterback, what's that's going to look like, because he's 6'5", 225 pounds, and, he can run, but we don't know much about him throwing the ball. And then they also return a running back in Bernie Burns that, had a breakout year, and he kind of had to with, the injuries that they've had, unfortunately, over the last couple of years. But I'm going to go 2.5 Topsail. I think this thing could go either way. It's going to depend on, just how fresh Laney looks coming out, and if they're able to figure some things out, because, a kid like Gavin Ellis, didn't play basketball and, set out this year so he could be prepared to play football and then jump into Wake Forest come, summertime and be ready to rock and roll. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I'll go 2.5 Topsail on the road at Laney.
Yeah, my biggest question for Topsail this season will be, I think Gavin Ellis is going to play quarterback, and I know Bernie Burns is a great running back. The offensive line has to grow up quickly. They're going to have some guys up there, and if they can grow up quickly, I mean, there might not be a better quarterback running back duo if Gavin Ellis lives up to the expectations that some of the coaches have for him out there. But the offensive line has to do a good job protecting them. We'll find out, I think, early this season against Laney. Let's move over to Ashley. All 3 games this week are inside Wilmington. The Screaming Eagles are going to host West Brunswick, who's coming off one of their best seasons in a very long time. Brett Hickman with that program rolling last year. Last year, the score was 21-2, West Brunswick. They lost a lot. Ashley was a very, very young team last year. They're going to have Jackson Jones back at running back, but they also will be breaking in some new guys, a lot of JV people that I think Coach Helms kept on JV last year to just kind of keep them safe, and had some sophomores that maybe could have played varsity, but he kept them at JV. I'm going to set the line for this one at West Brunswick 14.5. That way you have to think, if you're going to pick West Brunswick, you got to think they're beating them by more than 2 touchdowns, kind of similar to last year's 21-2 score. What do you think about that, Tanner?
I think you're close. I mean, it's tough to go against West Brunswick in this matchup. We talked about Ashley. I think they're a program on the rise. I think head coach Wilson Helms doing a great job over there. But it takes time. It takes time to, flip the script and get some of those younger guys in there. And, trying to get some of those underclassmen in there, your playmakers. This isn't a defense you want to try and do it against, because guys like, Carter White, Patrick Bean, they have a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And, Coach Hickman's going to have them coached up on offense. So I think you're in the realm of the possibility. And I hate going super widespread, especially when it comes to high school football. And we don't know much about these teams, but I think you're right on the dot with that. I was going to go 12 is what kind of I had set out. And I think, I think it'll be early on filling out process, but I think eventually the defense is going to stand tall and the offense will come to life for the Trojans.
Yeah, and hey, last year, 21-2, West Brunswick won 10 games. Ashley didn't win a game last year, and that game was within 2 scores for most of the night. I think West Brunswick scored late to make it 21-2. So Ashley played some good defense last year at times. They were in it against Hoggard, in it against South Brunswick. They were, West Brunswick not too bad. So can Coach Helms make some significant hey, you put up a good performance against a team that won 10 wins last year. That would be a great start. Yeah, maybe these big spreads, like you said, we might come back here next weekend
and be like, what do we do?
Apologies, but I think it's better to be bold, and we'll have a bold prediction later on. But let's get to biggest question. What's your biggest question? My biggest question coming into the week. I'll start first since I kind of planned this segment, and you can go off that. My biggest question is, which quarterback plays the best this week? We have 5 new starters of the 6 teams that are playing. Liam Appler at New Hanover, Ty Little at Laney, Gavin Ellis at Topsail, Barrett Swalls at Ashley, and I think Patrick Vereen is going to be the starter at West Brunswick. He played a lot of defense last year, and whoever starts at West Brunswick is going to be new because they lost Jay Fletcher. So which quarterback plays the best of those new guys? And then over at Hoggard, you have the Sam Jones, Gabe Johnson question. I think we have a lot of question marks at the quarterback spot, and with a lot of teams that are kind of all see themselves evenly matched, that position could determine a lot when we get to, late March and April, time to determine a conference champion.
And you kind of mentioned it right there. I think it's going to be, who's going to be the next guy that we talk about when it comes offensively in New Hanover County, in the MidEastern Conference? Who's going to be that next guy? Because, it seems like over the years, Jackson, we've always had, there was a returner that we were like, this guy rushed for 1,000 yards or caught, 800 yards through the air last year. And we've had that for the last 3 or 4 years since I've been here. But now we're at a point where we look at it and we go, there's a lot of guys we know of, but there's not really that, Verge all-state guy that's there right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
If you made me pick preseason offensive player of the year for the MidEastern Conference, I would probably say Raz Chandler at New Hanover, just because I know a Dylan Dimmick run offense normally is really good for running backs. Last year he performed competing with Mackay and Jabez, and this year I know they've got some depth there, but he's the main guy. So that would be my pick, but I wouldn't be all that confident because, like you said, Gavin Ellis, maybe he puts in a terrific season at quarterback. Maybe a Liam Appler is ready as a sophomore to take over. Maybe there's some guys at the Brunswick schools that we haven't really heard of yet. I mean, it's been 14 months, I think, since we had a football game. So, yeah, it's a question mark on that side of the football, whereas I think defensively we know some of the names a little bit more, like, Carter Wyatt and Jackson Jones over at Hoggard. So, well, anyway, Tanner, I sprung this on you today. Do you have a question yet for me? What's your biggest question coming into this week?
I think just like you mentioned right there, biggest question coming into this week are what our offense is going to look like, not just because we don't know exactly, you mentioned the quarterback. So I kind of bridged off of that a little bit, not necessarily that we don't know what the players are going to be able to do. We know that, these teams have a lot of ability, but just what is it going to look like with new faces, with a weird off season? These teams have been working out since the summer. Coach Dimmick said they've probably had involuntary workouts, about 80 of them. So, what will that look like? Are these teams going to be ready to go? Not many scrimmages or jamborees and just kind of jumping right into it.
Yeah, it's definitely – it's going to be interesting to see is there a trend to do offenses or defenses have an edge early in the season with what's going on? I don't know what the answer to that is, but maybe all the offenses underperform. Maybe that's a good sign for teams like West Brunswick, South Brunswick, who are going to ride their hat on their defense this year. All right, one bold prediction for the week. It doesn't have to be a win or a loss. It can be stats. It can if you want to go out on a limb and predict a win or a loss. I'm not going to do that this week. My bold prediction is I had a little birdie tell me that Laney's Ty Little looked great in Laney's scrimmage earlier this weekend, that he was really impressive, the sophomore quarterback, and I think he's going to throw for 3 touchdowns in his first varsity start with the Buccaneers. Coach Little has not shied away. It's going to be an RPO system that likes to throw. No better start to his tenure to get his son, sophomore quarterback, going, and Laney look really well in that offense. I think 3 touchdown passes for Laney's Ty Little. What say you, Tanner? What's your bold prediction for this week?
Bold prediction, New Hanover and Hoggard is going to be decided by 7 points or less. We both set our spread within 4 points realistically. And I think finally, Jackson, we've been talking about this has kind of been one-sided. I think it's going to come down to, the final fourth quarter, because, this is a year where you look at both teams on paper, there's not much separation, still a lot of question marks, but I think it's going to come down to, who can, as you said, Hoggard's controlled the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively for years, and that's going to make a big impact. But, on the other side, Hanover's got offensive linemen like Bryson Boyette, who is, has the ability to be a college football prospect by the end of this thing. So I think that matchup's going to be decided by 7 or less. And, a lot of people are going to be treated to a good football game Friday night at Legion Stadium.
Yeah, Bryson Boyette is a good call out. He was terrific last year for New Hanover. When he was hurt, you could tell there was a difference in the offense. He's such a leader, a really smart offensive lineman that I know he plays center. I think he can play all along that line, though. So good call out there. All right, I hope you're right, man, because it's been a while. I think I'm trying to look it up. I wrote in a story earlier today about the rivalry, just that it had been a very long time. I think 2013 was the last time the game was decided by 10 points or less, or less than 10 points. We've had some blowouts in all the recent years, but sometimes it happens, a rivalry game. The emotions are high. One team gets off to a good start, the other team gets down. Hopefully we're blessed with a great game Friday night, but regardless, I'm just happy we'll be out on the high school sidelines covering some football finally after 13, 14 long months. Tanner, before I let you go, anything you want to plug? WWAY, your Twitter, football preview. What can you say for the people to follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just, as always, we'll be having the 5th quarter Friday nights, high school football highlights from across the Cape Fear, all the way out into Columbus County. We'll have some of those as well. And you can tune in, check that out. Should be a good time as always. And I hope you guys will join us for high school football season, and look forward to a good year. Hopefully some breakout performances and top plays to get everybody excited here as we get things going. It'll be a short season, but hopefully we can get through it. No COVID cancellations anymore, I guess, than we've already had, and we can play some high school football here and let's keep the rain away. Can we do that, please? I'll be all right with that.
It doesn't look like we're gonna get
No,
off
for Friday. No.
I almost made my bold prediction about how many COVID cancellations, but I figured don't put money on anything that's that unpredictable. So
don't you dare.
All right, guys. And for me, StarNewsVarsity on Twitter. Follow along tomorrow. I'll be at Legion Stadium covering the Hanover Hoggard game. And, StarNewsOnline.com/sports. We got so much football preview content over there. And we'll have you covered all season with the MidEastern Conference. And then, of course, Pender and Trask. We'll get to them. We're just a little heavier focus on the MEC with so many local games kicking us off this week. So, Tanner, thanks so much for joining me. We'll see each other next week. Hopefully, we're not too embarrassed by our bold predictions and questions this week, but I think we did a pretty good job, man.
All I'll say, Jackson, is just keep improving every week. Hopefully we're better next week.
Exactly.
We'll maybe know a little bit more.
That's the football mindset. Get better every week. All right, Tanner, take it easy, man.
You too.